Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for February 12th, the day of the Unifier. That's right, and here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the Unifier. We have us what appears to be, I'm taking a guess here in the dark here, or in the light if you like, some medieval type axe blades there, but not any axe I think I've seen in the wild there. And they also seem to be gathered with a rope. As far as the axes are concerned, I may have seen some in the hands of what you'd call the Swiss guards, those guys that are dressed up in the colorful outfits that guard the Vatican. It's the only thing I can think I've seen it in. Otherwise, some movies or books, literature, if you like. But that said, not altogether all too important, the visual representational image there. Sometimes it's just nice to let you guys see what I have here on the page. So you can kind of get ingrained with the paradigm that's going on, since you can't see the book as I'm reading it. But that said, not altogether all too important, like I said. But what is important, well, it's February 12th, and so that must mean it's somebody's birthday. That's right. What's important around here is wishing you a happy birthday. So if it's February 12th and it's your birthday today, well, happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, as it sometimes does, hey, I just hope you had a happy birthday in that instance. But that said, there's also folks like to join us randomly or drop on in to celebrate. And so if that's the case, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I begin the read, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake and roll some dice. But I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And oh my lord, folks, it's been done again, and it almost never happens. Boom, the old snake eyes. It happened a couple days ago, and I think before then, maybe never. All right. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear tell, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But oftentimes we go through this life and we kind of got the blinders on, all right? Yeah, we see a lot of things that are going on around us, but we might not lend them much credence or significance in our lives, all right? And so this is a little bit of an exercise to take off those blinders and maybe start to recognize the things that the universe is specifically laying out for us. And how do we do that? Well, we need some kind of sign to help us see the things that the universe wants us to see. What about, say, I don't know, something that's mutually agreed upon, like, I don't know, your dice. That's right, you're one and you're one for a two. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers that I rolled for you, but it is probably an ideal idea to take yourself a set of dice so you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. So now, say this is something you want to do. Well, just pick a place near and dear to your heart, or perhaps some place you maybe haven't explored before. Say the town square. And you get on out there. But like I said, you want to take those blinders off, all right? And start soaking up everything that's going on around you, because you never know. The day might also start to take on a little bit of a theme. Your universe might deviate or pivot away from your numbers. And you know what? We have to be eagle-eyed for the things it might pivot to say things that are going to start presenting in a myriad number of ways, and maybe a myriad number of variations too. Let's take the visual representational image there, maybe the axe handles or the Swiss guards that they belong to, all right? Hey, you know what? You might not see an actual Swiss guard, but you might see somebody in a very vibrantly colored, garments or, clown suit, if you like. Hey, I would take that as a sign. And that's probably something easy to notice there if you happen to start seeing it everywhere. Or, these really medieval-looking axe blades, all right? You start seeing some janky-looking sharp objects keep coming into your day. I would take that as a sign that the universe is looking out for you or throwing up some synchronicities, all right? So that said, the idea of keeping your eye out having been relayed, let's say you get after this first leg of your journey. You're setting off for your 2 minutes in your northerly direction, whatever it happens to be. And maybe, I don't know, you get to the end of this 2 minutes, and where are we? Hey, you're still in the park that you set off from, right? Well, stop, compose yourself, look around. Maybe you just so happen to notice, I don't know, there's somebody underneath a tree playing an instrument. Well, you know what? Do they kind of grab your attention? I don't know. If not, all right, well, keep going. Roll yourself another dice, all right? Another dice value. head on out. Maybe again, at the end of this one, you're not seeing anything. Just maybe there's some guy over there playing a bucket there, like the drums. Hey, you know what? Maybe a little bit of a theme, a little bit of music perhaps. I don't know. Just take note of it. Maybe look around too if you're not seeing anything else. Maybe you just so happen to notice. That's right. Maybe you're on old 11th Avenue. All right. Hey, another sign we're on the right path. All right. So take that kind of stuff into, I don't know, what do you call it? Into your mind there, and then just keep going with it. Maybe the end of your next time value, well, hey, maybe the bus pulls up, and again, maybe it's like the number 2 line. Perhaps. Maybe on the side of that bus is an advertisement for, yeah, you guessed it, clown suits, or I don't know, some kind of cutlery, perhaps. Again, I take another sign there. Maybe you hear some more music, say. I don't know. Take all that stuff in. But say get on the bus. Maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket for another synchronistic happening there. And roll your dice for a time value to get off of there. But no sooner do you roll the dice, you pick it up, and let's say it's still a number 2. And maybe you look across the bus, and there's somebody in a colorful sports jersey with, you guessed it, the number 2. Maybe take it under advisement to roll your dice, or maybe not even roll your dice. Maybe just follow them off the bus at whatever stop they get off on. And you could also think of these things as an anomaly. Maybe you're out there in the middle of the day and everybody is wearing just blasé colors. Yeah, maybe you happen to see somebody, like I said, wearing that rainbow-colored sports jersey, regardless of the number on it. So you might roll a dice to follow them, a white rabbit of sorts, and, track them to see where they're going. Though, maybe leave a little buffer, though. That said, if somebody notices you're following them, hey, just be transparent about what you're doing. Show them your dice. Maybe show them this video so you can say, hey, I'm not altogether all too crazy. I'm just trying to shake things up in my life. It's this guy that's crazy. And they go, yeah, it is pretty crazy. So, but you know what? Maybe they're just so apt to join you. Because everybody, I would argue, wants a little bit of magic in their life. And if you start stacking up coincidences and synchronicities, if you like, hey, maybe you might just kind of see the magic therein. At least I can hope that for you. So I think you get the idea. Get out there, start stacking up coincidences, seeing themes, and just noticing that the universe is with you on your path. All right, let's dive in with the birthday read, shall we? Your month is February. Your day is the 12th. Your sign is 22 to 24 degrees Aquarius of the Aquarius III period specifically. And your quality and elements is fixed air. All right, February 12th, the day of the Unifier. February 12 people display a marked ability to unify disparate elements in their environment, and whether bringing together a troubled family, healing a rift between friends, or demonstrating leadership to resolve disputes in organizations, they can often be found bridging the gaps between people. Does this make them team players? Not exactly. Those born on this day usually assess a given situation from their own standpoint, and if they have the authority to do so, chart the course for the group. It is less in their nature to build consensus. However, this is not to imply that they ignore or undervalue what others think. It is just that they often feel that they have already assimilated most points of view and can come to a conclusion as to the best course of action. Having reached a determination, they are then highly influential in persuading others to follow their lead. In February 12, people are many-sided individuals with varied talents, and therefore an added challenge for them is to unite the disparate facets of their own personality. Too often their versatility works against them and subverts their purpose in organizing their career and personal concerns. Furthermore, their stubbornness, once they have made up their mind, and a refusal to change course can create difficulties. And faced with many problems, they may just try to ram their way through rather than seek compromise. And because they so often think in absolute terms, it can be difficult for February 12 people to relativate. And yet this is precisely what they must do if they wish to perceive the truth of any given situation. And although they may wish to remain faithful to their original ethical principles, they must also learn the importance of changing to meet new circumstances and listening carefully to well-thought-out suggestions and observations made along the way by coworkers or associates. Not uncommonly, February 12 people grow comfortable with one codified point of view, which becomes a framework or working philosophy for them that directs their thinking. However, if they can bring themselves to periodically examine this outlook to see if it has stood the test of time, well, they will straighten their ideas or strengthen their ideas rather, and divest them of many illusions and misconceptions. The most highly evolved of February 12 people eventually discard those theories that cease to function for them. And undoubtedly, the efforts of February 12 people to bring people together rather, can do much good. However, letting things change, grow, or even fall apart of their own accord is sometimes a more appropriate response. Just walking away or quitting goes against the grain for most February 12 people, but they may come to realize that the greatest courage can sometimes be demonstrated in following the path of non-action. All right, this was a very interesting birthday read today, not only for one reason or another, but this period in Aquarius, they've been doing a lot of rug pulls. You start getting on this one track of thought, one train of thought, if you like. Oh, I can kind of see where this is going, and then boom, they start going in a different direction, or they bring about some twist that really shakes up the whole dynamic. And here I would say that happens in no small part. But I might be getting ahead of myself. Let's dive into a little bit of a commentary I like to provide on the things we've read, perhaps some things that I took note of, or just make connections with days previous or the period in general. So let's dive in, shall we? February 12th, the day of the Unifier. You have a marked ability to unify disparate elements in your environment, or otherwise violent and reckless. And you're said to repair and heal rifts between people as well as groups. But as it happens, you also tend to assess such situations by your own means of analysis, to come to your own conclusions. And you aren't necessarily looking for outside input on how best to approach remedying any given situations. To which I would say, if you're known as the so-called disagreement doctor in those regards, people should probably let you work your magic, all right? Let you cook if you like. But having said as much, I could see certain people thinking this may come off as a my way or the highway kind of mentality. Or like you're the only one who knows best, at least in your own mind. Whether this is the reality or not isn't said in the breakdown, but it lends me to wonder if it's an obstacle you'd encounter, especially in high-stakes situations, because it would seem like that's the common sense thing to occur in such situations. But with that in mind, the reading claims you have your work cut out for yourself in your very own case, at least as it turns out, because if you are in fact a multifaceted, talented individual, it says it can be a bit of a challenge for you to unite the various aspects of your personality. And it may be difficult for you to organize your myriad of talents into a cohesive whole that works for you or works to your benefit instead of diverting your focus. All right, you might have too many things pulling at you from different angles. All right, that's been happening over the course of this period on a couple of onesie-twosie days, so a little bit of a through line there. To this end, an innate stubbornness to make such things work when they don't seem to mesh, or in ways that you wish they would, and they don't. And that kind of makes for a rather ironic turn. That little bit of a rug pull there, especially when we deviate the focus onto you, not able to necessarily make things work for yourself. So I thought that was a great little surprise there. This has come up, actually I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see, it's a bit of a recurrent through line here in Aquarius, such things here. To say it's come up once or twice with other people born in this period. But this isn't the first mention of stubbornness, nor difficulties in finding a balance between personal and professional lives there, nor a mention of multiple talents. That's come up before as well. So this small aspect of the breakdown imparts a fair amount of info all by itself. To this end, objectivity and a reconciliation of preconceived notions with your preferred or determined approach to any given problem is also something of a through line. It's finding a way to kind of accept those disconnects, if you like. And it maybe speaks to the idea of antagonisms that could arise in trying to solve the problems of others. But again, the breakdown seems to be more focused on your own personal disconnects versus those of the others, and your evolution in this particular process. It also, to the extent that the suggestion of walking away comes up, is a more appropriate response. That's very interesting to me, as I don't think it's ever been mentioned in the book before. Certainly not as a course of action that is endorsed. All right, there have been plenty of times it recommends people don't walk away from their problems. But maybe you're of such capacity to get mired in such very specific brambles. If you're out there solving everybody else's problems, well, then this kind of line of thinking might make all the sense in the world, just because it's very specific just to you. Though I think maybe it's more about walking away from those professional sorts of things versus the personal. Those are probably the things that you should work on and not walk away from. At least I would think. Well, but they didn't say as much, so that's kind of interesting to that extent there too. That having been said, that's what I had to say about your breakdown there in the commentary. So let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 12th of the month are ruled by the number 3, as 2 + 1 = 3, and by the expansive planet Jupiter. And those ruled by the number 3 often rise to the highest positions in their sphere. And they can also be rather dictatorial, and February 12 people should try to moderate such tendencies. And those ruled by the number 3 like to be independent, and in the case of February 12 people, this may mean giving up a secure position in order to be free to act as they wish. And the Jupiterian nature of number 3 encourages February 12 people to follow their calling with enthusiasm. And the influence of Uranus, which is Aquarius' ruler, grants them the aggressiveness, forcefulness, and the luck they need to carry their plans through. All right. Very interesting here. There's some stuff that came up that didn't come up in the breakdown. Let's dive back into the notes here, see what I had to say. We got the number 3 in the expansive planet Jupiter for expansive philosophical outlook, propensity to rise to the highest position in your sphere, and more aptly mentions finding the most positive, constructive approach to solving problems, which is mentioned elsewhere in the book, but is surprisingly absent here. All right, and I don't know why. I mean, this is the one day I would say that it seems to apply the most to. That said, the reading claims that you can also be dictatorial, interestingly, which I was waiting for in the breakdown as we were going through it, but it didn't come up. But here it is in the numbers and planets. So all told, if you're a leader worth their salt, then you probably know when and for whom such an approach is warranted and works best to say this dictatorial attitude. So moderation. You're also said to follow your calling with Jupiter's jovial enthusiasm, but the explosive, erratic planet Uranus, which is also said to shake up and electrify the elements of any given planet that it is into a co-rulership with, well, it's said to grant you aggressiveness and the seldom mentioned Jupiter quality of material luck, all right, which also came up on the last Jupiter day, but maybe one other time otherwise, even though it's written elsewhere as a quality of Jupiter. And so it's just interesting that Uranus has to be in the mix for that luck to really shine through, at least insofar as it merits mention by the authors there. So in any event, that's what I had to say about your numbers and planets. Hopefully I added a little bit more value to it for you, even though they actually said quite a bit in this particular entry, which is a little bit of an anomaly here for Aquarius. There's been some days where it's kind of some of the sparsest entries I've seen. So they personalized it for you even outside of what I added to it for you. But that said, there were a few things that were a little anomalous because they could have put in stuff that spoke even more to you. But here nor there. We covered those bases for you. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us to start dealing out the cards to say, I don't know, predict our future or however they're used. So let's just see what it has to say. Oftentimes we can make some connections, once again, with the breakdown. And I don't kind of further drill down and cement what's been already said. But sometimes not. We'll just have to see. All right, here we go. The 12th card of the major arcana is the Hanged Man, who dangles by his foot in a head-down position. Though such a position seems helpless, the Hanged Man is nevertheless spiritually powerful and deeply thoughtful. The positive attributes of this card are recognizing limitations and overcoming them, as well as simply being human. Negative aspects are spiritual myopia and restrictedness. All right. The opposite of Jupiter there with the restrictedness. This expansive planet Jupiter. All right, let's dive in with the tarot. We've already talked about the planets. All right. The Hanged Man for recognizing limitations and overcoming them, and simply being human, which, going by the positives alone, I'd say almost informs the breakdown. Not much is said in the breakdown insofar as spirituality is concerned, so the authors themselves kind of realized said spiritual myopia themselves, ironically. But one could certainly argue you may not have the time for much, considering everything that you do. And I would say probably because you're pretty down to earth. And I would say probably, too, if you're getting into a disagreement about spiritualities, well, you probably have to take that middle ground where you don't land on either side in order to, keep the negotiations on an even keel there, if you like. But I'd say spirituality is just as much a part of being human and may help lend a little bit of clarity, or at least a much-needed break from the frustrations, I assume, that you must run into. So don't necessarily neglect unifying yourself. All right. Yeah, that's right. Remember a little bit of the spirituality. That's right. If you like. All right. Just lend some credence to it if you like. All right. So that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right. Those born on February 12 usually have well-defined ideas about health in general. And as long as they are basically in good shape, they may choose not to seek help for minor complaints. They figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And such an attitude in general is in general healthy and self-reliant. But those born on this day must beware of various insidious problems that they don't slowly develop into more than just annoyances. The same is true for their diet. If they feel well enough, after all, they're still alive, they may just eat whatever they wish without considering the consequences. February 12 people should try to limit harmful substances if possible, and stress variety and nutrition in their food choices. Vigorous physical exercise is recommended, such as gymnastics, aerobics, competitive sports, and other endurance activities. All right, very unique health entry today. A lot of suggestions that haven't been popping up previously. All right, at least in this period specifically. Health says you're well-developed. You have well-developed ideas with regard to your health. So one of the rare mentions of as much in the Aquarius period here, as it turns out. But it does sound as though if things go well enough for you for long enough, you may take a little bit of an indifference for as much, which many of the other Aquariuses seem to possess before that little bit of a preference for being well mindful of it. So this apparently extends to your diet as well, and the book's general avoidance of any specific food recommendation continues on also. Before the Aquarius period, they were very religious about bringing up what foods you should eat specifically depending upon your day. And Aquarius, this has been largely devoid. Only a couple mentions there. What else do we have here? There's no mention of this turning into an issue if you're able to eat whatever you want. That's basically all they said for you, at least apparently. But they said vigorous exercises for you, which is also an anomaly because then there's no context for why vigorous exercise for you. I would say it might be to help curb or excise a little bit of that Jupiter, Uranus energy that comes up, that aggressiveness they mentioned. But most of the other days here in Aquarius, surprisingly, rather boilerplate as well, but they've always mentioned to some extent moderate exercise there, even moderate to light. Vigorous has come up a couple times, but not very often, and certainly not on the days that you would expect it. Typically, the vigorous or the what do you call it, like combative sports that comes up for a lot of the specific days is usually a Mars day, the days for people who have a lot of aggression or godlike, god of warlike energy. And on those particular days, nowhere in sight. So pretty interesting that you get the vigorous exercise. So it must be Uranus shaking things up again. Who's to say? But that having been said, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Remain objective as well as open. Examine your belief system and be prepared to reject those aspects that are no longer true. Flexibility is strength, and keep your critical nature under control. All right, quick, fast, down and dirty with the advice. Usually is, but as was today, usually a lot of value. All right, let's dive into it. I had to write it in a book, so bear with me. My writing's tiny here. Remain objective and open, they said. All right, a principal strength of yours, I would argue. Keep it up, but also apply it to yourself, most importantly. They said examine your belief system and be prepared to reject those aspects no longer true. You're said to be stubborn, all right? And really know, so I would say really know this about yourself. You have to accept as much. I know that sounds, I don't know, like obvious or whatever, but a lot of times we know things about ourselves, but we really don't drill down on that we know them, and accept them, and know them to be the reality, because that's when we can start making changes. So I would say really know that about yourself. You're also apt to better reconcile the disconnects and keep your abilities sharp and on the cutting edge. All right, you got to abandon the things that don't work anymore, and especially if there's maybe something else out there that works better. All right, so you got to give some consideration there, I would say, especially in a field like yours where you're bridging gaps and mending rifts in people's lives. All right, flexibility is a strength, they said, or at least a strength to be mindful of. All right, I'd say just like knowing when to be dictatorial, all right? Know when to be flexible, but also know when to be firm. Keep your critical nature under control, they said, both for yourself and for your work, all right? I'd say your control is a chief power, all right? So maintenance of those qualities, already making you a force to be reckoned with, seems to be the theme here. For some very uncharacteristic advice. All right. I don't know why I wrote that, but it was in my mind for some reason. So maybe it makes sense. When I see on the read through, maybe it'll make sense. But that having been said, that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation. All right. Here we go. Without breakdown and decay, there would be no rejuvenation. All right, I like this. They're picking up on a theme and sticking with it. All right, not the one I would have thought of, but here we go again. Without breakdown and decay, there would be no rejuvenation. All right, it's your birthday, it's your meditation. I'm not going to throw my own spin or interpretation on that for you. That's just for you. It would kind of defeat the purpose if I did for you, wouldn't it? But that having been said, that's been your meditation. So let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where we got the girth and where we're otherwise a little more deflated or atrophied, if you like. All right, your strengths, you're many-faceted. You're projective, or not projective, you're protective rather. All right, the T like a J. You're protective and you're conceptual. Interesting. I'm not quite sure I picked up on conceptual, but your weaknesses. Oh, that's right. Let's hold that objective mirror back up, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. Maybe shows off the things you're otherwise superficially insecure about within the metaphor. All right, your weaknesses. Your intolerance, unyielding, and you're closed. All right, not news. I think we picked up on all those. Though we couldn't have been sure that's what they were going to drill down on. All right, oftentimes I like to say, Our weaknesses can also be strengths. It just depends upon the situation. That having been said, if you want to get over your weaknesses, I also like to argue that your strengths are going to help you do it. You're many-faceted, you're protective, and you're conceptual. Well, many-faceted right off the bat. Hey, you're going to pull whatever talent you need in order to get over your particular weaknesses. You're intolerant, unyielding, and closed. Hey, you're going to pull from something that shows you, here's how I can start breaking this down or that down, or how I can open up more, how I can maybe give a little bit more in that particular case. Yeah, no, I'm surprised they didn't mention stubborn. That seems like more of something that would come up in a weakness. But hey, you got intolerant and unyielding and closed. I would say those are all facets of the same beast there. But as far as weaknesses being strengths is concerned, hey, you know what? Sounds to me like you're oftentimes at the negotiation table, and when it comes down to it, if you can put your foot down in a lot of cases, hey, that's apt to be a strength. I would say you have to be choosy when you decide to implement it, though, and be what you call yielding and tolerant and open most of the time until it comes time to really lay the hammer down, and then you're like, you know what? I've been those things earlier. Now it's time we make a decision. I think you get the idea. Any event, I often like to say, don't get rid of our weaknesses altogether, because they kind of make us who we are. So, yeah, it's just good to know those things about ourselves, and so then we can improve. That's right. And that has been a chief concern for the day. With that having been said, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is not only see who shares your company, but look at it from the perspective of figuring out our passions. Because too often I get out in the world and meet individuals and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and a lot of times they don't. But I think it's paramount that we're chasing after something that we derive fulfillment from in this life. Because a lot of times we get into a job that we don't have a passion for, and it's just this rote thing that we do. Punching the clock, like I said, putting the blinders on and commuting to work, putting the autopilot on. And then what's the point of living, right? If not just to follow this persistent routine. I think there's so much more value to be derived if we're chasing after a purpose or a passion, if you like. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to maybe, get some inspiration to drive after that, if and we don't have that in our lives. Because I think it takes time, it takes work and energy to commit ourselves to figuring that out. And so hopefully I can just put the bug in your ear about it, and it's going to get you to, maybe start doing as much. Start putting the time in to figure that out. Because if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's the chasing after something fulfilling, all right? So let's get into it. Let's see who was born on this day. We start off with Abraham Lincoln, the U.S. president, born in a log cabin, self-educated, freed the slaves, and led the Union in the Civil War, and was sadly assassinated. And wasn't he known as the Great Unifier? Sounds familiar. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds familiar. All right. We also have Charles Darwin, the British evolutionist, the naturalist, and wrote Origin of the Species. We have Cotton Mather, a New England Puritan, a theologian and founder of Yale University, and was also, I didn't know this, a Salem witch hunter. Not that I knew anything else about this guy, but a Salem witch hunter. How about that? That doesn't sound like a unification there to me. Well, maybe in a certain respect, but a little bit intolerant there, if you like, for a weakness. That said, we also have Bill Russell, the Boston Celtics basketball center and a 5-time NBA MVP, led Boston to 11 titles and the first big league African-American head coach. We also have Franco Zeffirelli, an Italian opera film director and famous for Romeo and Juliet. We also have John L. Lewis, the United Mine Workers Union president, Arsenio Hall, the TV host and comic film actor. We also have Charles Dumas, the U.S. Olympic gold medal winning high jumper and the first to clear 7 feet. All right. We also have Fang Lizhe, a Chinese astrophysicist and responsible for the creation of the universe. The book, not the literal universe, I don't believe. All right. We also have Omar Bradley, the U.S. Army World War II general. We also have George Meredith, the British poet and novelist of The Egoist. And we also have Arlene Specter, a U.S. Senator of Pennsylvania. Ray Manzarek, a rock keyboardist, famous for being a member of The Doors. We also have Lorne Greene, a TV actor of Bonanza fame. Eddie Robinson, a head football coach. And says Grambling State, 50 plus seasons, college record for most wins. We also have Joe Don Baker, a film and TV actor. Hugo Stins, a German industrialist. Joe Garagiola, a baseball catcher and a commentator. We also have Judy Blume, a juvenile fiction writer, and Joseph Aliato, a San Francisco mayor. All right, I'm sure I butchered a name or two in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just Hooked on Phonics isn't the best tool for pronouncing names. But that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is winter, your sign is Aquarius of the Aquarius III period specifically, and your quality and elements is fixed air. And I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but like I said, if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're driving after a passion to figure out what you want to do in this life, and maybe do something fulfilling with the rest of your life there. All right, regardless of whether or not it's an occupation or just a hobby. So yeah, chase after it. All right, but this has been February 12th, the day of the Unifier. Don't know that we made any kind of connotations with the blades there, the medieval Swiss Guard blades, but here nor there. It was an interesting little inclusion. But this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy. It's right above a little personal message I'd like to leave in there for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents. Makes an excellent coffee table book if you're in the market to say, host a party and need a little help getting the ice broken. Maybe even if you don't, maybe it's just one of these times you don't want to have to do as much. So yeah, break this thing out, break some literal ice considering its girth, get the conversation started for better or for worse. That having been said, the book having been relayed, which isn't altogether all too important. But what's important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us today, to celebrate the birthday, I'm hoping. Well, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we see you for your birthday reading. But lest I forget, that's right, your snake eyes. That's right, your doubles. Your 1 and your 1 for a 2. Once you get out of jail, get out there and let the universe help you see that it's with you on your path. Stack up some coincidences, some synchronicities if you like, and you understand why I brought it up in the first place, all right? But once again, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? I want to also thank you for the pleasure of your time and the privilege of being able to share and celebrate your birthday with you, all right? And enjoy doing these things. This was a particularly troublesome birthday for me to get through. I had to try recording it a couple different times with some mumble mouth with all of it. I know I didn't need to say that to you, but I just wanted to be open and honest with you. It was a bit of a day for me, all right? So all the better, all the more to celebrate that we got it in the can for you, all right? So once again, happy birthday, all right? And take care of yourselves.